Tycoon has a lot of operations, which makes it super difficult for you to know which ones are the most important ones to unlock first. So in today's video, guys, I will be going over just that, and I'll prepare 12 operations which you need to unlock the most, which basically prepare you for every situation possible in order to be able to compete with the modern people in this meta. But by the way, before we start this video, I would really appreciate it if you subscribed. We are on the way to 50,000 subscribers. So the first operation you ever have to do within the game is going to be Operation Rocketeer. Knock over 25 trees, cactuses, or sign with any vehicle, which basically allows you to unlock the Javelin. This thing as a starter player is extremely needed because without it, it's kinda hard for you to compete with any vehicles on the ground if you don't have a vehicle yourself. Now the next operation which we're going to be moving into is going to be the EOD. This is by far the best armor in the game which you could get as a free-to-play player right now, which is arguably better than the current armor which you have to spend money for, which is actually really easy to unlock. All you really have to do is keep the capture point and get 40 kills using any explosive, which is honestly not that difficult because you could either use grenades, you could use different types of explosive weapons, or you could even use different types of vehicles which are also explosive. And this armor over here basically provides you everything that you are really gonna need for most combat scenarios. The only thing you have to really worry for is going to be the fall damage that you're gonna be taking if you jump out of a vehicle. However, this armor also does lower your fall damage, so that's also important to keep in mind. Now we're going to be moving into some tanks, and there's really only two tanks which you need to unlock in the game to get yourself started. The number one tank which you're going to want to go for is going to be the M3 Bradley, simply because it tells you to spend 40 parts on spawning tanks. So you essentially have to be spawning Shermans. You do not want to be doing the operations which force you to score kills, and the simple reason why is because the Sherman itself is not going to be able to do that for you. You're going to be dying way too much, and grinding for any other vehicles is going to be absolute pain. However, if you manage to get the Bradley, then you also have the best free-to-play droppable vehicle in the game, because the Bradley isn't only a good tank and an easy operation, you could also airdrop it, and it's the best behind the BMD. And when it comes to a reliable battle tank which you could start actually grinding for, I will suggest you guys the Challenger 2 Black Knight. The simple reason why is because this challenge is actually pretty easy. Using active protection system 50 times, collecting 10 crushed drones, and receiving damage in any tank. You could grind this challenge by receiving damage even with the Bradley itself by just sitting at the gas station and essentially just shooting yourself in the middle of that. However, you do also need a tank which forces you to use the APS, because the Bradley doesn't have APS, so I strictly just recommend to go for a tank with the easiest operation right here, which is probably going to be the Leopard, which actually provides to you the APS. Now next up we're going to be moving into the boats, and there's really only two boats which you're gonna be needing in this game, and the reason why I say two is because you are not going to be grinding for one of them with the freaking Barracuda boats. If we move into the boats, the first one you're ever gonna want to get is gonna be the USS Independence. This is one of the best vehicles in the game as of currently. However, the USS Independence doesn't only provide you really good naval coverage, it is also basically just a Patriot that sits in the water. You will not need to unlock any anti-air vehicles if you have the USS Independence, because this thing can do the job even better. However, in order to actually grind for the USS Independence, you're gonna need to go for something a lot easier to unlock, and that's why I recommend you guys to be unlocking the Project 1124, which essentially tells you to get 30 kills using any explosive and collecting 5 airdrops from the map. These two challenges are honestly pretty simple and not too hard to unlock, and the Project 1124 is also just a good boat overall, which will serve you really well until you actually unlock the USS Independence. Now quickly moving into the garage vehicles, and there's really only one garage vehicle which you need to grind for. In my opinion, that's going to be the Laser APC, and the reason why is because it by far has one of the easiest operations for you to be able to unlock it. However, this vehicle is also extraordinarily powerful when it comes to brute force and quick DPS exchanges. This is going to be the vehicle that you're going to be spawning in if you're low on parts, but you also want to be able to get some quick damage done to the enemies which are camping your base. This thing will be able to do that job for you because you also have the spawn protection. You don't really have to worry that much about the low health, but this thing has some absolute damage potential. Yes, the Striker MGS is probably the better vehicle, however its operation is just simply much more difficult to complete, and another thing that you need to consider is that this vehicle is a strategy vehicle and not a DPS monster. You have to play it well. However, the Laser APC, you could play it with any skill level. Now next up we're gonna be moving on to the planes, and one plane which you need to go for straight away is going to be the Su-57 Felon. Right away as you unlock the planes and you get the Mustang, you don't want to be going for any other planes because, funny enough, some of these tier 1 operations might even be harder than the Su-57s. All you have to do with the Su-57 is spend parts spawning planes and getting 30 kills using any plane. It is very simple, and you could also do this with a friend, which makes this really easy to unlock. However, another plane which I actually suggest you guys to be going for is going to be the SR-72 Darkstar, and the simple reason why is because, for one, its operation is extremely easy because all you really have to do is spend 10 upgrade points, steal 10 vehicle parts or crates, and lastly you also have to collect 10 crash drones. And the reason why I'm also mentioning this is because the SR-72 Darkstar possesses stealth, which you could unlock really early on. And the reason why this is so important is because it helps you with another vehicle that you're gonna want to unlock, and that's going to be the RA-66 Comanche, because you have to activate stealth in any vehicle 30 times, which means you need a stealth vehicle quite early on before you want to unlock this operation. However, out of all the helicopters which you're gonna want to actually unlock, the RA-66 Comanche is by far the best operation helicopter in the game right now. So essentially the only reason why I want you to unlock the Darkstar first is because you will not be able to unlock the RA-66 Comanche without having the Darkstar itself. It all kinda adds up. And now lastly, moving into the submarine operations, you want to be unlocking the Bore class submarine, which is going to be Operation Deep Wake, destroying 80 enemy vehicles, spending 100 parts on submarines, and stealing vehicle crates. And this one is really simple to do, and the reason why I have you do the Bore class operation instead of the Los Angeles class is because the Los Angeles forces you to be using a submarine to unlock it. However, the Bore class does not do that. However, the Bore class is also just the best free-to-play submarine in the game that you can get right now, and it's miles better than the Los Angeles class. However, one more important thing which you're gonna need to unlock is going to be the Phosphorus Strike operation. You need an airstrike, and the Phosphorus Strike operation is by far the best one which you could get because it is the best airstrike which you can unlock within the game. It has some insane coverage when it comes to area damage. It's also able to basically kill any tank or any ground vehicle in under a second. It has everything that you're gonna be needing out of an airstrike, and it is the only airstrike which you really need to go for due to its importance. I don't see anyone else using any other airstrike except the Phosphorus, and its challenge is actually quite easy. The only things which are kind of difficult to do is getting the kills, but you're gonna be able to score these things over time with any vehicle in the game, so it's not really that much of a problem. But anyway, for the time being, that's going to be completing today's list. Do let me know in the comment section down below which other operations you would also recommend for people to do first. I believe these 12 are the most important ones in the game, and they kinda add up and give you very nice coverage for basically any situation in the game. I didn't mention the drones and the hovercrafts, but that's because they're actually kinda useless. But anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video, and make sure to subscribe. We're on the way to 50,000 subscribers.